Beneil Dariush versus Scott Holtzman takes place this weekend on the main card of UFC Fight Night Vegas 6, Lewis versus Oleinik, and I can't wait for this matchup. Beneil Dariush, a veteran of the UFC that's been around at the top of the game for such a long time now, has an amazing resume of great wins, of guys that are even ranked above him right now in the lightweight division, including names like Diego Ferreira, and until recently, Drew Dober was ranked above Beneil Dariush in the lightweight division as well after his big win against Alexander Hernandez. That has recently been righted on the rankings. Beneil Dariush is now above Drew Dober, and I feel like that's rightfully so. Beneil Dariush has an amazing resume for the lightweight division. He's taken on Scott Holtzman, who is a dangerous opponent that just went and beat Jim Miller in a 3-round battle back and forth. Kind of got the better of it for the majority of that fight. It was a bit one-sided at some points in the Holtzman versus Miller contest, and we know how good Miller is since he bounced back against Roosevelt Roberts. But still, I feel as though these two guys are in completely two different levels of skill right now, and I feel like Beneil Dariush is at the other end, at the higher end of the skill level here. Beneil Dariush is going to beat Scott Holtzman. That's my prediction. I think he's going to get it done by submission in the second round. That's what I've narrowed in my prediction for. When I stare into a crystal ball, I think we see Beneil Dariush playing it patient on the feet in the first round, going back and forth a little bit, putting some pressure on Scott Holtzman against the cage and trying to grind him up against the fence. Then in the second round, he's going to do the same thing. Scott Holtzman's going to be a little bit more worn down because he's so muscle-bound and he's so explosive. He's going to be worn down from all the grappling against the cage. And Beneil Dariush is going to take his opportunity to get the back of Scott Holtzman, standing rear naked choke him, take him to the ground with it as well, and get the rear naked choke in the second round. However, Scott Holtzman is very dangerous. He's a powerful guy. He's a strong guy. Not really the power that I'm looking for to beat Beneil Dariush. In my opinion, to beat Beneil Dariush, you kind of have to KO him early. You have to have the power to KO him because he's been through a lot of wars in his career. You can't have just good power. You've got to have ridiculous explosiveness, and you've got to land at the perfect moment, like Edson Barboza did, like Alexander Hernandez did in Beneil Dariush's last loss. But since then, he's been on a 4-fight winning streak. In fact, I would say Beneil Dariush has 100% looked better than Alexander Hernandez, even though Alexander Hernandez beat Beneil Dariush. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a good win from Alexander Hernandez. However, he came out, did the fake glove touch, front kicked him in the stomach immediately, and then landed the right hand right after that. We don't really know too much about how that fight would go between Hernandez and Dariush 10 out of 10 times. I would never say that Hernandez beats Dariush more than 5 out of 10 times. That's something I would never say. In fact, I'd actually struggle to say that Hernandez beats Dariush 3 out of 10 times. I really would, because I think Dariush, although losing to Alexander Hernandez, is the better fighter. That doesn't take away from Alexander Hernandez, but Dariush, in my opinion, would beat Alexander Hernandez the majority of the times they fought. And even in the fight with Edson Barboza, people forget about this. Dariush was doing really good in that fight with Barboza. I thought Dariush was winning some moments of that fight before the flying knee. He got a little bit over-aggressive, but Dariush was landing good kicks to the body. He was landing good punches in that fight. He was taking good shots as well. I think Dariush is very underrated in the lightweight division right now. I think he beats a lot of guys. And I think he beats Diego Ferreira in a rematch. And Diego Ferreira is ranked, I believe, number 10 or 11 in the lightweight division right now. Dariush is one of the monsters. He really is. And Scott Holtzman is a dangerous guy. I don't want to take away from Scott Holtzman. Although I'm looking at different wins in their careers. Although Scott Holtzman has beat guys with good records, there's just a different level of establishment in the names of Beneil Dariush, where they've already shown that they're good and can compete at the highest level. If I read you the last few names on Beneil Dariush's record: Drakkar Klose, great win. Frank Camacho, not the best win in the world, but he made it look easy by first round rear naked choke. So I'll allow it, because he made him look easy. He made him look like Frank Camacho was supposed to look. Moving on, Drew Dober. Looks really good in hindsight because Drew Dober's been looking good recently. He beat Alexander Hernandez and had some good wins even against Nasrat Haqparast. Great win over Drew Dober that he's hanging on to right now. Thiago Moises just submitting Michael Johnson in the second round by an ankle hook or I don't even know what he got him with. A knee bar, I believe it was. But just submitted Michael Johnson in the second round to Thiago Moises. Beneil Dariush beat him by unanimous decision. Lost to Alexander Hernandez. It was a bit of a weird moment. You know, that fight doesn't go Hernandez's way the majority of the times out of 10. I think we can agree. Little bit of an awkward draw to Evan Dunham. But then you look at Rashid Magomedov. Beat him by unanimous decision. Beat James Vick. Beneil Dariush was the chin keeper. I mean, the chin taker. Not the caretaker. He was the chin taker of James Vick. He loosened the jar of James Vick's chin. Everyone else just popped off the top every now and again. But Beneil Dariush really worked to get rid of that chin in the first place. Now, I know Michael Chiesa beat James Vick back in the day, and that's another win and a loss that's on Beneil Dariush's resume. I know Michael Chiesa TKO'd James Vick, but Beneil Dariush, if he didn't send James Vick to the Shadow Realm like Nico Price did or Justin Gaethje did, he at least plastered James Vick into the doors of the Shadow Realm and left him with a knock as well so they could come to collect him in due course when he went to face against Justin Gaethje. But still, back then a win over James Vick was a young, hungry up-and-comer that had some success, and Beneil Dariush KO'd him in the first round. He's very dangerous. So underrated. I'm definitely picking him to win. I just don't see Scott Holtzman winning this fight. He's got one TKO win in the UFC so far. There was a doctor stoppage in his last fight against Dong Hyun Ma, which was a good fight. I'm sure he was winning that one if I remember correctly as well. He lost to Nick Lentz. I'm just not seeing the TKO or the submission ability I need to see if I'm going to be convinced you're going to catch Beneil Dariush in the first round, because I still believe this to this day. The only way you're going to beat Beneil Dariush is in the first 2 rounds. You let him get his momentum together and don't get things done quick enough, he's going to start to really ease into the fight. He's a veteran in that way, but he has taken a lot of damage and he knows he's taken that damage. So he's a little bit hesitant in that first round. But I think if he goes out there and just pushes Scott Holtzman to the cage, exactly how Nick Lentz did it, but better because he's Dariush and not Nick Lentz, he's going to have an easy time with Holtzman. If he tries to stay on the feet, he's playing that risk. I still think he would win on the feet against Scott Holtzman because Holtzman doesn't really have terrifying KO power. I would be going with Beneil Dariush though. I think he wins this fight 9 out of 10 times. I could look really stupid in hindsight, but I really think Dariush gets to win. But one thing I do want to say. First of all, I need to exaggerate that. Nick Lentz beat Scott Holtzman, and that wasn't that long ago. And Scott Holtzman is 36 years of age, on his way out of his prime. I'm just saying, Nick Lentz beat him, and that's Nick Lentz. You know, just going to put that out there before we get into this next segment of the video, which is, why would Beneil Dariush take this fight? I've heard a lot of people asking questions about that. When it was first announced, people were saying, why was it not Makhachev? Why was it not Diego Ferreira rematch? Why was it not Kevin Lee in his comeback fight? Like, there are a lot of fights that Dariush could have had right now that weren't Scott Holtzman. And I believe it's only because he's 1 fight left on a contract. And if he renegotiates, he knows he'll be taking on ranked fighters and he'll probably get good pay. I think that's the only reason. I would imagine he's got 1 fight left on his contract. He wants to win it against Scott Holtzman, which, although might seem like he's overlooking Scott Holtzman, I think he sees this as the most important win out of his last 5. Out of his last 4, sorry, because most often guys sign 5-fight deals. That's the majority of the contracts. Unless you're a debuter in the UFC, you might sign a 3-fight deal. Majority of guys sign 5-fight deals. That's what they do. He's won his last 4. I think this is the most important fight out of his last 4 fights. To end your contract on a big win against Scott Holtzman on the main card of a fight night, and do it in good fashion. If he makes a good statement here, the UFC is going to start paying up for Beneil Dariush, and he's already earning some decent money as well. Let me actually check what Beneil Dariush earns. Beneil Dariush payouts. Why not? Why not just find out what Beneil Dariush makes in his fights? $140,000 for his win over Drakkar Klose, right? I don't think that's $70,000 to show, $70,000 to win. I really don't think that's the case whatsoever. But let me look right here. Against Drakkar Klose, Beneil Dariush made... Please don't blue ball me. $52,000 to show, $52,000 to win. Which probably means he's going to be making $55,000 to show, $55,000 to win in this fight. That's big stakes for Dariush. And that's why I like this fight, because normally I would think, why is he taking on this guy? Maybe he just thinks it's an easy win. But when I look at the fact that he's had his last 4 fights, he could be getting better opponents, but he's chosen this one instead. This might be the biggest fight out of his last 4. You know? I really do believe that, and I think Beneil Dariush is not going to overlook him. He's going to be patient in the first round, push Scott Holtzman up against the cage like Nick Lentz did. Nick Lentz had a great game plan against Scott Holtzman. It was a close fight, don't get me wrong, and Holtzman had his moments, but I think if Nick Lentz can even do that to you to a unanimous close decision, Dariush is going to do that to you way more dominantly. And then he's going to choke you out at some point as well by standing rear naked choke. Dariush gets it done by 2nd round submission. Looking forward to this fight. And if Dariush wins, I think they're going to do Makhachev versus Dober. But if Charles Oliveira doesn't fight Diego Ferreira next and they end up doing something like a Dan Hooker versus Charles Oliveira or a For some stupid reason, maybe they do a Poirier versus Oliveira, which would be dumb, but still, they could do those kind of fights. I'd imagine Dariush has a real good chance of getting that Diego Ferreira rematch, because when you're a guy who's above someone in the rankings, and the guy below you's beaten you, you're not really in the position to say, I'm not going to take a step back for that guy. You know? Because he's beaten you. You owe him that jump up the rankings, kind of. In the UFC's eyes, anyway. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. I think Dariush wins, man. I'm really looking forward to it. And honestly, if Scott Holtzman loses, no big deal. Go and fight somebody good up-and-comers in the lightweight division. Lightweight's one of the funnest divisions outside the rankings right now, so there's no shortage of good names to take on. And if Beneil Dariush loses, I'll be somewhat surprised that he lost to Scott Holtzman. Ridiculously surprised that he lost to Scott Holtzman, because if Dariush can't do what Lentz could do, I don't know how he beat some of the guys on his record. If he can't do what Lentz can do, and I understand there's every chance that Scott Holtzman goes out there and chins him, maybe, because Dariush can be KO'd. He's been chinned before. I just think Dariush in a smaller cage is going to have such a smothering game. That might be another reason why he took this fight, because he didn't want to wait for top contenders, and he wanted a chance to fight in a smaller cage with his smothering style of grappling that he likes to employ on guys like Drew Dober, on guys like Drakkar Klose. I mean, he had Drakkar Klose's back for what felt like an entire round in that fight. I mean, Drakkar Klose only survived that first round by twisting and breaking the fingers of Dariush in the rear naked choke position, which was absolute blatant cheating from Drakkar Klose, and I don't like it whatsoever. So I'm glad that Dariush KO'd him stiff and sent him to the Shadow Realm. Dariush gets the job done. Like and subscribe. Click that button there. And goodbye. Great matchup. Really good. Thank you, UFC. These cards have actually been quite enjoyable recently. See you later.